Hey, 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 welcome back to the A for Business podcast. It's me, Courtney Shaw. This is episode 20, and we're going to be talking about essential boundaries for service providers. All right, so I'm just here getting my steps in. I don't know if you saw this over on Instagram, but I get like maybe 2,000 steps per podcast because I record these standing up. And that's not because I'm trying to stand. It's because in my apartment with my husband working from home and all that, like this is the most convenient spot for me to be, and it requires me to stand. So get my fitness in while I record these podcast episodes. And I'm so excited about today's topic. Like this is my jam. Boundaries. This episode is going to play directly off of last week's episode, which was all about people pleasing. So if you haven't listened to episode 19 yet, it doesn't mean like you don't have to listen to it first, but I definitely recommend listening to it to accompany this one. I also want to remind you that for February, our theme has been these 3 massive mistakes that all service providers are making. So our first episode of the month was about the 3 mistakes. The second episode of the month, episode 18, was all about how to price your services. And I it wasn't a giveaway, but like you can get a copy of our client capacity and pricing calculator that is literally a part of our high ticket coaching program. So please go grab a copy of that. It's over at courtneyshaw.com/calculator. I'll make sure that the link goes into the show notes and the blog post and everything that goes with this episode. And that said, we're going to dive in today and talk all about boundaries. You know me, I don't like to waste time. Already talking for 2 minutes that's not about the episode is enough for me. So let's dive in. What are boundaries? What are they? Let me just do a little rant really quick. I cannot stand when people speak in abstract terms that do not have like concrete real world implications. And I get really frustrated. I think I just have this passion for taking these abstract concepts and making them really concrete. And I feel like boundaries is one of those things. People talk about boundaries, so many service providers, so many entrepreneurs, and sometimes it feels like it's just because it's a buzzword and a trendy thing to do. So what I want to do first is just like, let's break down what is a boundary. A boundary is really like, and this is a Danielle Laporte reference. It's just such a great visual for this, but it's sort of like having a fence around you, okay? And that fence, it's not like a cement wall. It's like a fence, okay? It's something that's very clear, like, hey, this is my private property. It can be a little bit flexible sometimes. You don't want to be like super rigid, right? Like a big cement wall is like terrifying. We don't need to be like that. But it's clear, like, this is my property. Please don't enter. Maybe the door is locked, etc. All right. And Danielle Laporte has this expression. She says, what does she call it? Oh my God, I'm forgetting the first part of this, but it's like, you want to have a really good fence and a big open heart. And I think she drops an F-bomb in there somewhere. Okay. So within your boundaries, this is the beauty of boundaries. And there's this concept in French called the cadre, the frame. And there's a concept with children that they need a frame in which they can play in and they can be free in. And like within that frame, you don't have to worry about them. So the difference between that and maybe like more North American style parenting is, and I noticed this because I was a nanny in France for both French kids and American kids. And it was a stark contrast between the 2 types of families when I would literally go from one type of family to the next. And I noticed that in the French households, the kids had a lot more freedom, but they weren't like running around crazy. They just like, I remember there was this one kid that I nannied for a long time, and there was this big wooden dresser kind of thing with these big heavy drawers, and his toys were in there. And he was 3 years old, and he would go to open these drawers, and I was terrified that the drawer was gonna like drop on his foot. Like I just was like, this 3-year-old isn't capable of doing this. Like this is really dangerous. And every American cell in my body was like, no, let me help you, be careful. Like all this like coddling and like, let me make sure that the kid isn't doing this and that and like being safe. But in the French kind of style, and of course I'm making like some sweeping generalizations here, so don't come at me, is more like that's his drawer. He knows how to open that drawer, leave him be, allow him to have that freedom within his cadre, within his frame. Okay. So boundaries are kind of similar. And within your boundaries, you can be really free. So what boundaries really help with is, and specifically, we're going to talk about very specific boundaries with business owners, but let's say you have a boundary with a spouse or a partner that here's a great boundary that like, you don't come in when I'm using the bathroom. Now, some people don't have that boundary. That is a very important boundary for me, but like, you don't do that, right? Now, that is an understood thing, maybe TMI, but an understood thing in my relationship. We don't do that. That is not a line that I cross. And so when I'm in the bathroom, this is like, I'm going to break down this metaphor now. I'm really free, right? Like, I don't have to worry that someone's going to barge in. I don't have to I know that I'm like in my safe space. All right. Weird analogy, but I hope you're with me. You guys have been listening to me long enough. You know that I'm a weirdo. All right. So this is the idea of the boundaries is within that, then you can be really generous or you can, you can be really caring, but you know that like, it's within that boundary. Another example that's non-business, just to give some framework here or some foundation, is with my friends, they all know that like I'm kind of terrible at texting and really just responding to communication in general. Now, sometimes I'm fine at it, but a lot of times I'm not. And so because that's understood, people don't get mad at me for not like answering the phone right away or responding to text messages right away. Now, if I had made it the norm that I always respond to text messages, probably because I'm people pleasing and I'm like, oh my God, they want a response. I have to do this. I have to do that. Then they would maybe get concerned if I wasn't responding because it would be out of the norm. And this is what a lot of you guys are doing with your people pleasing is you've made it the norm, the people pleasing. So when you don't do it, you perceive that people are upset. And sometimes they are, but sometimes you're just perceiving that they are because you've changed something on them and they thought that your people pleasing was the boundary. And the whole time you were resentful of that because you built your fence out way too far. You needed to kind of like take it in a little bit. Okay. So those are just a couple of analogies of what boundaries can look like. Some helpful boundaries. Okay. Boundaries are all about being honest with yourself, number one, and then with others, number two. People pleasing is dishonest with yourself, number one, and with others, number two. Okay? Very important reframe. If you people please, you are being dishonest. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. All right? Anyone without boundaries is unprofessional. And I do not want to work with a single person who doesn't know how to set boundaries because I have no idea what they really want. I can't trust them to do things because they'll say they can and then they'll get overwhelmed because they took on too much because they were trying to people please and then they can't follow through and then they get resentful and it's just this whole problem, right? Like I don't want to work with people pleasers. I never ever do. All right. So how do you determine where you need boundaries? I'm going to go over a whole list of some different boundaries and some boundaries that our clients have set. Here's how you can identify other areas because there's just like infinite number of places where you can figure out, oh, I kind of need a boundary there. I need to raise my boundary there. I need to set a different boundary there. Okay. Anywhere you are unhappy, procrastinating, resentful, stressed, overwhelmed, triggered, those are areas, signs that you need a boundary. I would really write that down if I were you, especially if this is newer for you, because it's going to take some practice to notice like, ooh, I'm resentful of this. That's an indicator that I have a boundary I haven't set here. It doesn't mean in that moment, set the boundary. It means like, ooh, once I kind of like process this feeling and this emotion, I need to look back and figure out, okay, what's the boundary that I could have set, right? All right. So for example, like this client asked for a refund and I realized I don't have a refund policy. Yeah, I need to set that boundary, right? For example. So let's get honest. Let's set our honest boundaries. I promise you, your clients are going to respect you more when you set boundaries. They're going to see you as a boss. They're going to see you as somebody who knows what they're doing. Think of any leader. Any leader is somebody who is very clear about where they stand and what they want. And it's not about being harsh. It's not about being a drill sergeant. It's not about being, like just mean and brutally honest. It's not about that. It's about just being honest. And there's this great concept. There's actually a great book called Radical Candor. Radical Candor is all about challenging directly and caring personally. And so if you just challenge someone without caring, that is like that feels mean, that feels rude, that feels harsh. And if you don't challenge people and you care about them, then it actually goes into manipulation. Okay. So if you really care about people, this is your responsibility as someone with a big heart, as someone who cares, as someone who wants to be of service. If you really care, then you have to set boundaries and you have to be clear, or else you are being manipulative. I know you don't want to be that, but that's what's happening. Okay. All right. So there's 3 areas I want to talk about in which I want to talk about boundaries. The first one is general business boundaries. The second one is customer service boundaries. And the third one is client work. And I just thought of another one. I'm just going to add to my notes. You can probably hear me typing. Add to my notes. Okay. So we're going to talk about a few different boundaries in each of these. And I'm going to kind of share in between some different client boundaries that have been set from our clients. So general business boundaries. This is going to include things like your work hours. So like when your quote unquote office is open, your schedule. So like when you do certain things, like when you do certain types of work, when you take meetings, when you record podcasts, when you work on marketing, when you do your finances, those are boundaries that you need to uphold with yourself. And that's really key here too, right? Is like, a boundary, a lot of times where our clients struggle is when they're like, oh, my clients aren't following my boundaries. And I'm like, but you're not following your own boundaries. So you've got to hold yourself to your boundaries. And the way you do that is remembering what that boundary is protecting you from, why that boundary is there. Okay. So work hours. When do you work? Now, I'm not saying you have to say like, we work 9 to 5 and take lunch from 12 to 1 and like follow that to a T every single day. I'm not saying that, but I think outwardly as a business, you do need to communicate, what your work hours are. So we have a really clear autoresponder that goes out, anytime anyone emails customer service, and I'm kind of bleeding into customer service now, but this autoresponder goes out telling people our hours are 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, Pacific time. So if you email me on a Saturday telling me you're having a tech issue, we're not going to email you back on Sunday. It's not going to happen. We have a 24-hour response time during business days, right? So if you email me on Saturday, you will get an email by the end of the day on Monday. Okay. So these are things that you want to set boundaries for. If you don't have these boundaries, what happens is you start getting emails and questions and people coming at you in all different directions, and you are just reacting to it in real time. You need to decide what that is for you right now. You can always change it later. What is it for you right now? Your schedule. Okay. So I'm very clear about, and I've had to get more and more clear about this because as you go and as you grow your business, there's going to be more things vying for your time. I've had to be really clear about what my personal schedule is and what my availability is when I take meetings. So for example, I'm just going to tell you kind of my schedule as it stands right this minute, and this is constantly in flux. Monday is like a chill getting into the weekday. I don't take meetings. I have one right now that I have to do, but like it's going to move soon. And it's really my day to like get into the week, do more administrative things, planning, things like that, finances, things like that. Okay. Tuesday is a marathon meeting day. I have all my internal meetings that day. At the time of this recording, I'm removing myself from a couple of them because we're hiring people who are now running different departments and meetings, but I was running every department. And so I had to run every department meeting. And so I had meetings on Tuesdays, like at 10, 11, 10, 11, 2 and 3. And then I would have some client calls sprinkled in there because I still was doing some of our one-on-one client calls. That details aren't important, but like that's kind of Tuesdays were meetings. Okay. That way I know I'm not going to get anything done on Tuesday. So don't come at me trying to get something from me on Tuesday. I'm in meetings. That's what's happening. All right. Wednesday is sacred. Wednesday is my get work done, deep work, content creation. Right now, I'm batching a couple podcast episodes, this afternoon. And at this time, and this is my boundary with myself, right? Is I have at least a couple Wednesdays per month that I don't take any meetings or anything else. And then I have a couple Wednesdays per month that I allow a spillover because I am at capacity with my Tuesdays. And so it allows me to spill over meetings into Wednesdays, but I don't allow it every Wednesday. I only allow it some Wednesdays. Okay. And then Thursdays is my Yay for 100K clients day. Now I'm in our group every day. But Thursday is the day that it's like all about like, what do I need to do specifically? What are the things that I need to do to move the needle forward for our clients, for our coaching team, for our program? I have our coaching call that day. So that is Thursdays for me, that coaching call. I love it. It wipes me out at the end of the day. And then Friday is my personal day. It's my self-care day. So I tend to take a Friday off every 2 or 3 weeks. I schedule all of my appointments on Fridays. So dentist, doctor, acupuncture, my osteopath, my therapy appointments, they're all on Fridays, massages, everything. So this helps me so much when I make decisions, because if someone's asking me like, what day is good for you to have this dental cleaning? I can always say Fridays. Give me Friday. And so many of you guys, you have this open schedule and your dentist asks you when you can do a cleaning and you're like, well, I'm flexible. I don't know, Tuesday at 3, Wednesday at 11, like give it a day. Make sure that it all goes in that day. And then I know also on Fridays, like that's my big picture thinking time. I get to ease out of the week. I get to work on the business instead of in the business, all that kind of stuff. Okay. So that's how the scheduling piece works. Let's talk about customer service boundaries. All right, so some things that are included in customer service are response time on emails, where you do customer service, canned responses to frequently asked questions, and how you answer pick my brain requests. All right, customer service can also be, I kind of said where you answer things. So I'm going to give some examples of each of these things. Let me just make a note here because I just had an idea. Okay, so response time on emails. Now, this is one we really had to raise the bar on because we were getting people with what I would consider, what's the word I was going to use? Irrational expectations about how quickly we respond to your emails. And this happens sometimes, guys, when you have a small online business and a personal brand. People they get kind of delusional and think that you do everything in the business and you're going to respond to all their emails personally. And then if you don't do it in like within an hour, they freak out and send you a direct message on Instagram and all that. So what we have to do is just be really clear with people. And again, lots of compassion for that too. I don't want to sound like I'm villainizing folks. I'm not. Sometimes I get a little frustrated, but especially when people push on the boundaries, but it's really just about redirecting. So we are very clear. We have an autoresponder set up on our customer service email. Let's say that. Just having a customer service email. So if right now, all the quote unquote business emails are all going to your email, what I want you to do is this. I want you to create a second email that is your secret email. This is something I learned from Denise Duffield-Thomas years ago. And I only want you to give that email to people that you need to be in personal contact with. It's not for clients. It's not for customer service. It doesn't go on your website, nothing like that. Okay. I have one of these. It's fantastic. And then we just forwarded my old email to customer service and we created a new customer service email. So you need to separate, just like you need to separate your personal finances from your business finances, you need to separate your emails so that your personal email isn't customer service. Very important. Okay. Separate those things. Response time. How quick do you respond to emails? Is it immediately when you go check your email at 10:30 p.m.? No. So we need to set some boundaries there and you need to adhere to those boundaries. There are severe consequences to answering client emails after work hours. You're training your clients to expect that. And you might think, oh, it's easier. No, it's not. Have fun with that client when they expect responses right away and they don't respect your boundaries anymore because you don't respect your boundaries. All right. So how quick do you respond to emails? I recommend a 24-hour response time on business days. Stop checking your email on the weekends. That's on you. Now, if you do happen to check your email in evenings, what I would do is use the scheduling feature like in Gmail where you can write the response and then schedule it to send the next day. It's just so important you don't send those responses in the evening or on weekends. Okay, where you answer customer service. So I already hinted at this. Like, I remember when I was working with clients, and this is back when we used to use Skype as our number one video conferencing app. And I would have my sales calls on Skype, and then I would tell them, like, we use email for communication, and then I would get questions from clients on Skype, or I would have them send me a Facebook message. So what you need to do is very kindly just say, hey, thank you so much for your message. I can't manage client communication through this app. If you could please send me an email at this address, that would be fantastic. That way I know I'll get this taken care of. Thank you. Okay. And then again, have an autoresponder on your email that sets expectations for how quick you are to respond to those things. All right. That's perfect because that autoresponder is like a bodyguard for you. Okay. So where you answer, do not do customer service on Facebook Messenger. Do not do customer service on Instagram direct message. Don't do that. Okay. All right. Canned responses to frequently asked questions. What I want you to do, I want you to set some time to do this week if you don't have it yet. I want you to brainstorm a list. What are the 10 most frequently asked questions you get from people emailing you? Now, they could be really simple things or some basic ones. I'm going to talk about the, can I pick your brain? Or here's a question. I love this one. I have a really simple question for you. How did you build your business? Oh, okay. Yeah. Let me just tell you in 3 sentences. So how do you answer those questions? How do you answer inquiries about your service? How do you answer, I'm just trying to think of like people saying like, can I guest blog on your blog or whatever? Like, what are the most common things that you get? Create or templated responses for those, put them in like a Google Doc or something like that. And then that's something you can hand over to your VA to be able to take care of so that you don't have to do it. Pick my brain emails or requests. This is my favorite because it's my least favorite. Okay, so people get all up in arms about pick my brain requests. And of course, yeah, they're ridiculous. And I can't believe people do it. And it is like incredibly disrespectful. At the same time, people don't know better and they just need to have a boundary set. So we have a template that just says something to the effect of, Courtney is unable, and again, Courtney third person, I don't respond to these. Courtney is unable to answer personal questions via email. We'll keep this question in mind for future content. That said, if you're interested in working with Courtney, here's information about how to work with her. Okay. I had one recently where someone was like, I'd love to get on a call with you. It was just cracking me up. I'd love to get on a call with you to ask you questions about creating a course. I'll pay you I'll pay you $100 as a jest for your time. And I was like, a jest for my time? I was just laughing. I'm like, my team members can't even get a call like that with me. You're going to pay $100 as a jest. I mean, that word kind of insulted me a little bit, but again, I try not to take it personally. So I just sent this person a message saying, at this time, the only way to work with me is through this program. Here's where to get more information. That's it. You don't have to worry about it more than that. Okay. So that's customer service responses. Another one that we might put in there is refund policy. So I have a whole video on YouTube about how if you don't have a refund policy in place, you're basically just asking for chaos in your business because every business owner is going to get a refund request. And if you're in denial about that, you're just going to suffer the consequences later. So refund policy, where can you put that boundary? On your work with me page. We don't do refunds, right? Don't do refunds for services. Please, please, please. Don't do refunds for services ever. If you have a program, get clear about that refund policy. Put it on the sales page. And when people request refunds, you need to have a process for that. Okay, we need to check that they do they fit the guidelines of the refund? Yes or no? If so, here's what we send them. If not, this is the email we send them. Like create all that stuff in advance. And then when it happens, it'll be so much easier to deal with. And because you're going to take it really personally no matter what. All right, finally, let's talk about some boundaries on client work. I just want to give a caveat that this client work stuff, these boundaries get significantly easier when you have a signature service and it's really streamlined, which is what we teach our clients inside of Yay for 100K. Okay, so client work, we're going to talk about things like client expectations, your call cancellation policies, your method of communication with clients, the scope of work, and of course your refund policy, which I just mentioned above. All right. These are things you need to express to your clients in advance. I want to use the example of what was my signature service, Sales Page CPR, back in the day, because that was a brilliant service with a ton of boundaries and it made it such a breeze for me to work with clients. Okay. So client expectations. Number 1, work with me page. Do you have a work with me page that lays out all the details of your service, tells people what the expectations are, how the service works, and gives them all that information up front, has frequently asked questions, etc., including the price, all right? And again, of course, this is something we teach our clients. We give the templates, all of that, all right? That's the first thing. Your work with me page is setting a lot of boundaries for you. So make sure you have a very highly effective work with me page. Most people do not. The second place that client expectations are set is on your booking call. All right. I used to call these sales calls. I'm now kind of transitioning to call these booking calls. The method we teach, our 5-step sales system for service providers, is my lazy system. By the time you're on the phone with someone, they're already 90% sold. So it's not really about selling. It's about booking or deciding, oh, it's not a good fit for you. Okay. So on the booking call, what I do is super chill, guys. It's super, super chill. Is I always say, okay, you saw the work with me page. Do you have any questions about the service? Do you want me to just go over all the details with you? 100% of the time they're like, yes, go over the details. So I literally will just screen share the work with me page with them again, just to reinforce the work with me page has all the details on it, walk through the process on the work with me page. Here's how it works. And in doing so, reinforce the boundaries. So one of the very clear boundary expectation I had for my clients was I did not do drafts. Okay. You send your page to me. I CPR it and then I send it back to you and it's done. There's no like, I don't like this. I don't like that. No drafts. Remember my story last week's episode about the client who kept asking for drafts? Yeah. Anyone who does drafts, like web designers, anyone knows that torture. Okay. So no drafts, because frankly, I don't want to do them. That's not my style. I don't do it. If you want to work with me, you got to trust I've got it the first time. So I would say that on the booking call. I want to be clear. I don't do drafts and here's why. And always showing them why that boundary is a benefit for them. I want to be efficient. I want to make sure that you trust me. I want to make sure that we're a good fit working with each other. All these reasons for why I don't do drafts are also reasons the client doesn't want to do drafts and they're perfectly happy about that, okay? This is a great example of where setting expectations makes a client happier, not angry. And if I can make clients write their own sales pages and don't allow them to have drafts from me and they're happy, I promise you that you can set boundaries to make your clients happy as well. So let me know what it is that you're afraid to set a boundary on and I will tell you how to do it because it is definitely possible. All right. So you set those. I remember on my work with me page, those expectations, I think I said no drafts, no refunds. And I also, the boundary I had with them was they had to write the first draft for me and send it to me. And then I would let them know, is it to my standards? And I needed the draft by a certain date. It was like school, send it to me by this date, or you're going to forfeit your session. I need it now. I'm on a schedule. I'm booking clients. We want to respect each other's time. You don't want this project to get delayed. I don't want this project to get delayed. This is how we're doing it. Again, my clients loved this. I never had a complaint about it. And yet, here all of you guys are being afraid that if you set boundaries, clients are going to get mad at you when in fact the opposite is going to happen. Call cancellation policy. You need to be really clear about that because if you're not, good meaning people will cancel calls on you in the last minute. And I had an issue with this recently where I had like 5 calls canceled in the same 2 weeks. And I was like, okay, no, like my time is so sacred and I cannot have calls being canceled like an hour in advance. So we upped our cancellation policy. We made it clear to our clients that calls need to be canceled at least 24 hours in advance. If it's less than that, you're going to have to email the team to cancel the call. And that's that, right? Like we got to respect each other's time. So they're all on board with that. It's just people aren't meaning to do things that are frustrating and against your boundaries. But if you're not clear, you don't have policies, you don't have systems in place to enforce those boundaries, they're going to do things that are going to push your boundaries. Okay. It's just going to happen. So it is on you to set all this up. Okay. Method of communication. Tell your clients, I don't communicate via, Instagram DMs with clients. So if you have a question about client work, you need to email me or you need to submit it this way. Okay. Scope of work. Again, I talked about this in last week's episode, but scope of work is really just coming down to when does the project end? Where's the boundary on what amount of work I'm doing? This is so easy when you have a signature service because it's always the same. Like it's the easiest thing in the world. And yet it's the most difficult thing in the world for so many service providers who don't have a signature service. So creating or refining that signature service is step number 1 for you. And then, of course, having a clear no refund policy for services is absolutely necessary. Another one you might want to have here is if you have something like a mini service, we recommend that a lot to our Yay for Clients students, to have a mini service to build momentum for their main signature service. To have it clear, if someone in a mini service is often just like a one-off call, right? It's like a really effective, valuable call, but it's a one-off call. And you want to be clear on like when people need to book that call and when it expires, because you'll get people who buy something, they don't use it, and 6 months later, they're like, hey, I didn't use that. Can I have it? No. Okay. And that's perfectly fair. Again, stop enabling your clients and treating them like infants and start treating them like the adults they are and holding them responsible to their decisions and their own behavior. And they're perfectly capable of it. All right. So those are the boundaries that I want you to set. I would love to hear from you. Send me an Instagram direct message. I want to know, what is one boundary you're going to set, like from this episode? What is when you were like, ooh, I need to do that? Send me those DMs or share them on Instagram stories so I can repost your stories on our profile. And again, make sure that you grab the client capacity and pricing calculator over at CourtneyShull.com/calculator. It is a true gem. You are going to want to play with that. And I hope you enjoy it. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode, all about boundaries, essential boundaries you need to set as a service provider. And I will chat with you next week. Yay! Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you love today's content and are ready to finally start making a full-time income from your business this year, make sure to get on the wait list for my program, Yay for Clients, over at yayforclients.com, and you'll be notified the next time enrollment is open. Or if you're already booked with clients and you want to learn how you can turn your signature service into a signature program and add 100K of revenue to your bottom line, come apply to my group coaching program, Yay for 100K, over at CourtneyShull.com/apply. Thanks again and have an awesome day.